Hello, friends. Welcome, welcome. We are meeting back here today to have an amazing, beautiful, empowering, and just fun conversation with just an amazing human. He's going to be joining us right now, and we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, one of my favorite things to talk about, and that's self love and self care, especially when it comes to men. That's not something that we are used to doing, but and it's not a common conversation that a lot of us have. So we wanted to make sure we jumped on here and we took the time to really have a really open and honest conversation about what our own practices behind self love look like and what we really what we've passed and what we do now because these conversations are necessary, and at the end of the day, like, we all need to be practicing self-care, self-love, and do it in our own way. So this is my guy RJ just jumped on. He is just a wonderful soul. He is incredibly knowledgeable. He's been practicing for therapy for years now, and most importantly, he is someone that cares about sharing the message of mental health with our communities. And this is something that we really need to do more often, and especially we want to make sure that we have these conversations more often, so they can just become, we can kind of remove the taboo, and we can really jump in and really be our true authentic selves without the fear of what are people going to think, like all of that. Just like be the love and the light that we really are. But with that being said, thank you for jumping on, RJ. How are you feeling today, my guy?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me again. I'm glad that we get a chance to run this back again, man. I think there's of course, a lot more to be said and a lot more to be done. So I'm glad to be here.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Yeah, yeah. We're definitely going to be doing a few of these because there's a lot of information to unpack. And our community, especially men, we don't really take the time to dive into this too much. But this is stuff that we got to be doing every week, at least, at least. But yeah, with that, let's jump in though. So anyone watching for the first time, would you mind telling us a little bit more about yourself, RJ, and a little bit more about your background?
Yeah, no problem, man. So, for those that didn't catch last time, my name's RJ Berg Cordova. I'm a licensed mental health counselor based out of Orlando, Florida, and I've been practicing for about 8 years. And me and Carlos actually got linked up because of a podcast that I have, and we were focusing on talking about men's mental health. And a lot of it, really focusing on not only within men, but also men of color, because a lot of us are the least likely to seek out services, to work on ourselves, to really take care of ourselves, and which is part of the topic of today. And so, really wanted to be able to touch on that and help normalize that conversation, increasing transparency and visibility are all things that have been very important to me. So it was, of course, really exciting to catch up with somebody like you and connect with you, because it seems like we had that in common. And I'm hoping that this can continue to grow, and maybe we can reach more people, more brothers who are maybe suffering or struggling and not really knowing how to start that process, that maybe this can be a jump off or a starting point for them.
Definitely, that's beautifully said. We definitely need to reach as many people as possible, and like make sure that people know that they're not alone, and that there are like things that we can start doing today to start moving towards a healthier and fuller life.
Mm-hmm.
But anyone watching as well, I just want to emphasize the point that if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments, and we'll come back to them at the end of the live. And we want to make sure that this is engaging, and then you guys are actually getting answers for whatever we bring up that might not be as clear to you. But also, if you're watching the recording of this, feel free to drop in the comments any questions that you have. And I know that both me and RJ are going to be keeping an eye on the comments, and we're going to be supporting and helping however we can.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like, we're here to serve. So let's jump in.
Yes, sir.
So as we mentioned at the beginning, like, what this call is about is self-love and self-care. And like, that's not a conversation that I personally had growing up. That's not something that I was like taught in schools, to be honest. So that's something that I had to learn on my own.
Yeah.
And I have two degrees in psychology. I have a master's and all that stuff, and that's not something that I never had a class on self love.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that we took the time and like really kind of broke down what that looks like, and broke down specific actions and activities and behaviors that we can engage in today,
Oh yeah.
that can help us, to really become our best selves and really bring that to the rest of the world.
Yeah, man.
Um,
It,
Necessary. So,
it,
to bring it back to you, RJ, though, what has self love looked like for you in the past, and what does it look like for you now? Because I know for me, it has definitely evolved.
No, no,
uh,
no doubt, man. You're absolutely right. I think for many of us, particularly for men, I think the concept is largely absent. I think for many of us, we grow up in a mentality where the expectation is you're just supposed to make sure you can provide, you can be independent, you can take care of yourself in that sort of traditional sense. But beyond that, I don't think that we really go much deeper. And the caveat, I think the consequence of that is that we naturally don't learn to take good care of ourselves. We don't prioritize ourselves. And there's a great chance and a great risk that we just run ourselves into the ground, right? Like we kind of lead this unsustainable life. Just go, 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 put your head down, and hopefully, things will work themselves out somehow in the future. And I definitely grew up the same way. And self care really was largely absent, and it was never really encouraged or promoted to me. It was a concept I really didn't start learning until honestly I got into grad school. Until like people like professionals started telling you like, hey, you want to help other people go through this process. You need to make sure you're taking good care of yourself. I'm like, oh, what is that? What does that mean? So self care.
yeah,
I like to
100%.
start with like just describing the foundation of what I believe it means. And it was interesting. I was having a conversation with a brother this morning, and I was saying that I think when we think of like a hierarchy of what's most important, right? Hopefully to each of us. To me, we're always number one. And that means that it's not that I don't care about other people. It's not that I don't care about like my romantic partner, my child, whoever. It's just that I have to make sure I'm okay first, always, in order to care enough and be able to have emotional capacity for other people and other things. So to me, if there's like anything you learn from this concept that we're talking about, is learn and understand that being selfish in terms of taking care of myself first and making sure I'm good is something I hope that we all learn like throughout our lives. Because if we don't do that, then we run the risk of it negatively impacting all these other people that we might deal with, whether it be our significant other, whether it be a child that we're dealing with or that we have. It's very difficult to manage and maintain those relationships because I'm so used to just go, 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 and I don't make sure that anybody's looking out for me. So I always like to start there. But beyond that, it's just making sure that I'm sort of carving out time for myself each day, or even if it's every other day. Maybe you have a very busy life, but just putting in the effort, to make sure that like I'm giving myself some level of fulfillment as an individual, not as a boyfriend or a husband, not as a father or a mother, as a person. What did I do for myself today that helped me feel some type of fulfillment or joy? And I leverage that to help me with all the other stress and challenge I got to deal with every day.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's so beautifully said. Like honestly, it's so important for us to understand that if especially for empaths, if you want to help other people, like being selfish is actually selfless. Like it allows you to really impact and like be your best self for the people that you care about, whether it's your work or whether it's like your children, whether it's your friends or partners.
Yeah.
It's really a way to give your best self and like really just refill your tank, and understanding that each and every single one of us like needs to refill ourselves and before we can actually like try to give,
Oh, yeah.
and I think the way you said it is crucial because again like the idea of being selfish in society nowadays can has been viewed as something that's negative or something that's bad, but if you watch the last live, I remember you brought up like the difference between being selfish and like being egoistic or egotistical.
Yeah.
And that's powerful, realizing that like being selfish when you're actually filling your cup and like really
Yeah.
taking care of yourself first and doing the things that like help you fulfill your own needs as a human. It's very different. It's for other people at the end of the day. Like,
Yeah.
yes, like it helps you first, but at the end of the day, like, really helps you and your community. As you step out, you can actually be the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
Um,
Sure.
Whereas
Absolutely.
being like, egotistical, you just don't care. You're
Yeah.
just doing your entire day for yourself.
No,
Uh,
absolutely. Like, think about what you're saying. It's like for those that might not have caught that on the last one, because I was telling my guy this earlier, man. So imagine for those that haven't done this exercise before, imagine there's like several teacups around you. You have one for each of the people that you care about. You have one for yourself, and then let's say you have this other one in the middle that represents your like emotional capacity. That's like things that you care about, people that you care about, things like that. If my strategy, if I'm selfless, right? If I identify myself as being selfless, care about a lot of people, a lot of things, I take my cup that has all my emotional capacity. It means in many cases, I pour that out for all these other people and all these other things. What happens when I come back to me? There's nothing left, right? Because I'm so used to being selfless, I'm so used to not prioritizing myself ever. So by the time I come back to me, there's pretty much nothing left there. What happens to that kind of person over time? I'm probably not taking good care of myself. I'm not eating well. I'm not sleeping well. I don't do any good physical activity. Some of my dreams or my goals, maybe I don't push as hard as I could be because I'm drained, because I give to everybody else before me. All I'm saying when I talk about being selfish in the context of what we're describing in self love is to say, let me take that same emotional capacity. Let me first pour into my cup. Then I will go through and try to give as much as I can to other people because that is sustainable. I can do that for a lifetime. I can care about myself and then say, you know what? I want to put something in Carlos because that brother is having a hard time. Or I want to celebrate him because he's doing good work. And I want to give to me, or I want to give to some other creator or some other professional in the field or a loved one, right? That is a sustainable model. But a lot of times we have that confused. If you're very selfless and you care so much about other people, you're like, no, 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 no. I got to give to everyone. I want the world to have this first. But then who's going to make sure that I'm okay? Who's going to make sure that I'm taking good care of myself? And a lot of times I find that we fall short.
Literally just dropping facts, just dropping game as usual. I love that. That's a yeah. Literally everything you said is just really factual. And honestly, I wish this was taught in schools early on. This is not stuff that like it's not really complex language. It's not something that our kiddos can't understand. And like
Yeah.
when I worked at a school, I actually had the chance to like implement it and teach kids about this stuff early on. But I know that most schools don't really do that. But regardless of that, let's get a little bit more into objective and like let's get a little bit more into action because we spent a decent amount of time talking about the reason why we should practice self-love and the reason why we should fill our cup first and the reason why we should make sure that we're taking care of ourselves first
Yeah.
before we go out there and be a human. But
Right.
most importantly, what are the things that we can do today, or even most importantly, like just so people can get to know you a little bit better? What does self love look like for you in the past, and how has that shifted as you've grown into the person that you are today? Because for example, for me, I used to have this misconception about what self love was. I used to literally think that I would be on a break at work, and I would just like scroll through social media, and I was like, that's my self love.
Right.
Uh, and now I know that when you're doing that, you're literally draining your brain of all like you're overstimulating your brain, and you're draining your brain from all of those feel good chemicals,
Yeah.
and that's why many of us feel awful. You're like, but I had a break. I don't understand why I feel. Well, like that's not necessarily a break. So
Yeah.
I had to relearn what an actual what self-love and filling my cup actually looks like. So how has that shifted for you? Because I also used to do like binging Netflix on the weekends and thinking that was self-love. And then I was like, I don't know why I'm so drained. But
Absolutely.
yeah. So how, if that makes sense, what would that, what, how's that shifted for you?
No, it absolutely does, man. And it's funny you say that. I think for a lot of us, sometimes what I've noticed, I can say in my experience, and a lot of the people that I've been able to work with and get to know, is there's been things that maybe we've done a lot in the past that used to bring us joy, but as a natural course of getting older and just becoming more responsible, relationships, parenting, what have you, we sort of let fall to the wayside. So to give you a perfect example, like when I was growing up, like basketball was my world. Like I played ball every day, didn't matter if it was raining or not, like I was on the court every day. And as I got older, I noticed that because of life, responsibilities, financial stress, what have you, like I stopped playing for years. Just I don't even know why. I didn't make like a conscious decision. It just stopped happening. And it wasn't until like a few years ago that I recognized that, and I was like, I don't understand. Like I love this so much. Why did I just quit? And I started to make more of an effort intentionally to start doing more that I enjoyed. And so what I usually start with people is trying to understand from their perspective, what are things that you used to do that you used to find joy in? Because a lot of times there's a lot that was already there, but we just kind of stopped for some reason. And I think it's important to acknowledge and understand that, because that can be the thing that you can probably more quickly get back into because you already are more familiar with it. In addition to that, of course, you can always add in new hobbies or new interests. Sometimes that can be kind of, anxiety provoking, or it can be a little nerve wracking. Trying something new, like maybe you want to try to dance and you're like intimidated to go to a dance class. You're like, I don't want to be the new person. Or, for example, I had some female clients that like they wanted to do like a pole dancing class because that was something that that they thought was cool. And I support and encourage all of it. Finding your interests, finding hobbies, building community, right? All important aspects of lived experience. So I had to recognize to get more in touch with those things that I used to enjoy and then try to add more. So basketball, I started like longboarding sometimes, definitely exercise, trying to like go on more walks, be more physically active. Definitely like trying out new restaurants. I'm vegetarian, so like I have options, but I have to like look more specifically. So trying to find new places, like that's always exciting. And then just trying to build more relationships with people that I care about and being very intentional with time. So a big thing for me now, as I've gotten older, is building solid relationships with people, because you never know how long you're going to be able to be around each other. And so I think it's great if you find people with common interests that you can do things together. Like I have a buddy that we go rock climbing sometimes. Like finding little things that you can do, I think is always a great way to help pour back into your cup. And sometimes you can't do something extreme as maybe like going rock climbing. Not that that's extreme, but maybe like in your day-to-day life, it could be. So maybe it's like meeting up for a coffee, like once a week, because you're busy, you don't have a lot of time, but just something like, hey, I want to sit with you. Like, catch me up. What's going on in your world? How are you, man? And then let me share a bit about what's with you, because that's good to have that type of vulnerability, right, in that exchange. And then you get that chance to, connect with somebody in a real way. I'm never against like doing this and virtual conversations. That's great, right? We have technology. But I also think there's nothing to substitute actual conversation in person. Like there's just nothing to beat that, in my opinion. And so I think it's just making the time, really just making the time to invest in yourself. So be intentional, get that schedule, carve out some time in it. I love using Google Calendar. So put some time in there, going to lunch here, going to have a coffee here, going to the gym here, going to go skateboard here, or bike here. That to me is where it boils down to. You got to be intentional about it. If you are organized like that, budget the time in there, so more than likely you're going to get it. And that helps to not do what we were talking about earlier, where you're giving to everybody else and you don't pour in yourself. If I put it on my calendar, good chance I'm going to do it. So I am pouring into myself, which then helps me, continue to give to everybody else.
That's amazing. I'm really glad that you brought up that point on scheduling, because many times we tend to live life on autopilot, and actually really sitting down. And scheduling also helps you with those boundaries, because many of us we're not taught that self-love, it's important, and like you need to set those clear boundaries to make sure that you're still filling your own cup. Like I literally schedule, I'm going to do yoga at this time, and I made sure that at this time I'm doing yoga or whatever I'm doing. Like, and I mentioned even Netflix before. If if it brings you joy, scheduling also really helps because that way okay, I'm gonna watch Netflix for 2-3 hours
Right.
rather than just doing 8 to 10 hours and kind of just being mindless about it.
Right.
Like
Right.
the whole point of like self love is to really be present and be mindful about what you're doing, so you can enjoy that present moment
Yes.
and really just and that's why physical like I'm glad that you brought up a lot of physical activity because that's a really good way for you to just be where you are, be here, be now, and
Yes.
really. That's one of the best ways to like really feel yourself, and kind of just connect again with the present life and the world altogether.
Oh yeah.
Um, and it really like if you don't know where to start, like really start with scheduling. Like really look at your schedule, and not just don't just schedule your work. Don't just schedule your work time and your study time and all that stuff. Schedule times that you're gonna really like fill your cup. Schedule times that you're gonna like really care for yourself. Like
Hmm.
I have all my workouts scheduled on there. I have literally when I'm going to be stretching, if I'm going to be reading, I schedule that on there,
Hmm.
and it really helps you kind of just stay consistent. Also build those habits as well.
Right.
Um,
Right.
because if you're picking up a new habit, like RJ said, it can definitely be challenging at first. So if you schedule that and you continue to build on that, it'll become more automatic and it'll become easier for you to do.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah. I would add, especially
yeah.
if you're coming from where we were coming from, talking about if I'm so used to being so selfless that I never give myself time, you better
Mm,
believe it's going to be a very big challenge and shift in your mind to say, oh wait, I'm going to give to me first. Like that's hard in and of itself, just to like wrap your brain around that. So, like you said, and I agree, putting the time in the schedule, being very intentional, like whether you use a physical calendar, digital calendar, I like a combination of the two.
mm,
Being able to have that as that constant reminder, I think is great. And then just being able to build on what you were saying about being present. I like being able to do physical activity at times because I think it's easier to help you sit in this moment. Like last time
mm.
we were touching on feeling your feelings, right?
Yes.
What greater way to give yourself the time and being able to reflect and be able to feel your feelings, both positive, negative, and in between, right? So if I'm budgeting that time, I'm not saying like you sit there and like, I'm going to feel now, but maybe you go on like a walk, right? And then you see something and that reminds you of like something that you were feeling that you didn't have time for at the time. And you're like, you know what? Like, I want to think about that now. Like, that's the level of intention. I'm going to think about that. Oh, me and Carlos didn't get to talk about this issue that we're having. So let me sort of start thinking about it now to get myself prepared for that conversation and really thinking through how I feel and what I want to say and how do I want to express it. It's not so much like you have to set it down and be very prescriptive, like do this, do this, do this. It's just giving myself the time to say, no, it would be beneficial to me if I carve out this time and then whatever comes up, comes up. I'm going to take this
Mhm.
mindful walk around the lake. I'm going to look at these birds. And I'm really
Yeah.
just going to focus on like looking at them and love my breathing and be happy that I'm able to move. And maybe some other things are going to come up for me during that time. That matters. That's important. We all have to do that. You know what I mean? Even if you're trying to satisfy all those other areas. Me as a person, me in my relationship, me as a parent, whatever your roles are. I got to make sure I'm good first. Then everything else builds on that.
Definitely. I Yeah, 100% agree. Like that present moment is crucial. And I know that many of us, especially when we take those times, like let's say that you schedule time to go on a walk around the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that you put your phone away. Make sure that like even if you have a chance, like music is awesome and everything, but if you have a chance, like kind of just listen to your environment, be where you are, and really just feel what's around you. Really connect with the world that's the here and now, because that's really the only thing that's true. Like there's a past that passed, and there's a future that there's uncertain that we don't know about.
Correct.
So it's really crucial. It's really important for us to take that time. Let's say that you like to play ball, really just play ball and like really connect to the ball, like be there,
Yeah.
really feel the wind, like really feel yourself. um and and I think that that's so important to do. And honestly, that brings me to my next point, because I personally like to start my day off with presents. Like I don't touch like, and this wasn't the case for me always. So if you're watching this, know that this is pretty common. But before, especially when I was like getting my bachelor's in like in college, I'll wake up and like roll over and immediately like start scrolling on my phone.
Hmm.
Um, and and that's not, I wasn't being present. I was just being mindless. Like I was just mindlessly, I like to like literally mindlessly scrolling.
Yeah.
And then the rest of my day would kind of just become a mindless like scroll. Like I would just be living on autopilot.
Yeah.
Um, and once I began to be more intentional, and I learned about this through meditation, I was like, hey, you got to be a little more intentional. I noticed a massive shift, and now like I start my first hour of my day, and that doesn't have to be for everybody, because I know some people have children, some people are like have multiple jobs, so
Right.
you don't need to dedicate a whole hour. But even if you do 15 minutes, or even like 5 minutes to like really be present, be grateful, and be mindful, that can really help you kind of just fill your batteries up for the rest of the day.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so again, so since we're talking about being practical, I like to do what I call the power hour, basically. And again, like it doesn't have to be an hour for you. You can go and do 5 5 5, but I like to do 20 20 20. I do 20 minutes of movement, whether it's yoga, stretching. If you like to run, you can do that. I do 20 minutes of meditation, prayer, whatever it is that will work for you. And then do 20 minutes of education and just expansion, where I like pick up a book, listen to a seminar, and like really just add and start my day off that way
Yeah.
before I pick up my phone, before I even start having conversations with other people, before I fill my brain with unlimited information that's all around the world. I like to make sure that I'm
Right.
connected with myself first, so like you can really, because that first, like this first few minutes of your day, that's your true authentic self. Or like that's where you're gonna really be away from a lot of the conditioning that we experience throughout the day.
Hmm.
So I like to take that time to make sure that, okay, who is me? Who is me?
Good
What do I
question.
need to
Good
do?
question.
Right. Exactly. And that way, like you can really really step into your light and like really step into your power, because it's a really great way to, again, like we were mentioning, like fill your cup first before you go and do anything else. You
Yes.
take care of yourself first, and the morning is a great way to do it, because you start off your day that way, and then you're good to go.
No,
Like
no,
you can keep going for the rest of the day.
agreed, man. No, and I think, like you said, depending on whatever your day looks like, your routine looks like,
Mhm.
whatever your responsibilities are, it's about being intentional to make some of that time to do something that you feel fulfilled with. So, for example, some mornings I start off my day, I go straight to the gym first thing in the morning. Some days I like to sit here and I like to just water my plants. I have like some music on and I just sit there and I like very mindfully water the plants because I just like looking at them and smelling them and rubbing the leaves because it just brings me some kind of peace. I like green stuff. Having little
Love it.
times to do that, right? You talked about reading or listening to a seminar or a podcast or whatever those things are. I love movement but really just being able to be thoughtful about saying, I might have a very challenging day ahead of me, right? Some people might say this. Maybe you roll over, you're like, this is going to be a lot. But to help me sort of buffer myself so that the day doesn't like swallow me up or eat me alive, so to speak. Doing these practices like you're talking about, it helps, right? It sort of helps me, if you will, build up a little emotional armor to say, I know I'm going to have to deal with a lot today, or there's a high likelihood based on a lot of the way a lot of my days are, it may be challenging, but I'm going to give to me by doing this, this, and this. And that helps start off with a level of positivity and encouragement that helps me cope better with all the other stuff
Mhm.
that might get thrown my way. And if I do that repetitively, now that's like the way that I see the world. Now my perception is sort of shifting on how I approach my day. Instead of rolling over and being like, man, this is going to be a rough day. Maybe I'm like, this is going to be a good day. And then I'm going to go into my routine, right? And go do these things. And then I feel good about it. It gets me motivated to like seize the day rather than just kind of exist and survive the day.
we're all about thriving. Like surviving was back to ancestors. We really want to thrive. Like
Oh
we
yeah.
really want to make sure that throughout our day, like we're feeling energized, we're feeling
Yes.
empowered, we're feeling present, and we're grateful for every single moment. And it's a lot easier to do when you're doing things like what RJ said. Like you're literally just taking that time for yourself in the morning and like really like just water your plants, like and be there, like play some nice music, like really connect,
Yeah.
really like connect with your true self, and like just kind of take that time to remember that that we're all more alike than we're different.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's hard to remember that when you start your day off with like a lot of the separation that you'll see on social media, a lot of the separation that you see on the news,
Oh
and
yeah.
that's something to remember. Like it's important to like not just like our brains are wired for negative thoughts. Like our
Yeah.
brains are wired to just
Yeah.
immediately give you automatic negative responses to the environment.
Hmm.
A lot of it, most of our thoughts are negative. So if we can't, even if you wake up, you're like, oh, I don't want to do this, and then you go and like roll over and immediately just like either turn on the news or check your phone. That's just gonna give you more confirmation that you're right. The world does suck. People are mean, this and that,
Yeah.
and you're gonna bring that energy throughout your entire day,
Ooh, preach, man. Preach. No,
right? And then
it's
like nobody, everyone's gonna be like, oh, you're
ridiculous.
always in the mood and that,
Yeah.
and then people are gonna be your mirror. People are gonna give you back what you give it to them, even if you're not aware of it,
No,
even if you're doing it unintentionally.
think about what you're saying. It's so correct. Think about like I start off my day, right? I roll over, I grab my phone. I don't do this, we're talking an example. I roll over, grab my phone, I open Twitter, and all I see is like negative news, negative news, negative news, negative news, negative news. Then I go to Instagram. These people's lives are great. These people's lives are great. Then I go to Facebook or TikTok. These people are having fun. My life isn't as fun. All that is like invalidating my lived experience. It's making me probably much more frustrated and disappointed with what my reality looks like because I'm comparing it. We all inherently compare. We have to try really hard not to all these other lived experiences, and that doesn't benefit us. In the big picture, that's all it's going to do is make us feel more drained, like you said, just sort of surviving or existing through these days
Mm,
instead of trying to seize them. And
mm,
part of it can be social media. So I think being very intentional about how much of it you're consuming, or like you're saying, which I really agree with, if you have sort of a position where you typically start your day with it, then if you're going to do that, because I remember you mentioned this last time, follow content that brings you joy then, or encouragement or excitement if you're going to do that, right? Because we can't like change people overnight. You take baby steps. If you're like, hey, I gotta roll over, I gotta check TikTok, I gotta check, then follow something that makes you smile, or makes
mm.
you encouraged and excited to do what it is that you need to do that particular day. That to me is like a good baby step. So at least you're giving yourself somewhat some energy, as opposed to if you're rolling over and like doom scrolling, or you're just seeing a bunch of negative information that doesn't get you excited or motivated to like really want to do anything. I don't think that that's going to benefit you. So if you could put limits and say, I'm just going to do some mindfulness practice first thing in the morning, that would be awesome. But it might take you some time to get there. But at least if you're going to start by using technology or social media, follow some content like Carlos would say that brings you some joy and some motivation.
Definitely, I wholeheartedly agree. We sometimes we forget how much power we have about the stuff that we let in, and especially because we tend to be mindless and not intentional enough about social media or even what we put on watch on TV.
Yeah.
Like we have power, and our intention is what these companies are paying billions of dollars for. Like it's literally worth billions of dollars. Like this is what we need to remember. Like our attention is so powerful that these companies are spending billions of dollars every week to literally get us to pay attention to them.
Yes.
So it's important for us to take that time and like really decide, like make the decision and be intentional about what is it that we're going to allow in throughout our day.
Right there.
Like straight up, it's necessary, and we need to remember that. We really need to remember, like we're way more powerful than a lot of this, like the stuff that we see in the media makes us believe.
Absolutely.
Um, like we are truly infinitely powerful. And when it comes to I also wanted to bring up another practical point as well. This is from the behavioral analytics perspective.
Mhm.
There's this term called pre-mark principle. You might be familiar with it, but to break it down in simple words, like you're if you follow something that you don't want to do, something that like you really want to do, the thing that you don't want to do eventually becomes more attractive, becomes more fun per se. So, for example, this is something that I did when I was getting my master's and when I was in school. That was really helpful for me.
Yeah.
First of all, you identify what your brain tells you that you want to do, which for me at the time was scrolling social media because it is fun. Again, like they have dopamine departments that are literally centered around making you like release those feel-good chemicals.
Yeah.
So it's not that nobody's saying that like yeah, like it's 100% fun, especially if you're following people that like that bring you joy.
Mhm.
But if you're spending your entire day in it could be harmful. But you can also utilize those instinctual desires or needs, however you want to call them, and really just leverage them to help you do the things that you know that like will create a better life for you. So, for example, what I used to do, I knew I had to get my assignments done, but my brain would be like, yeah, but what if you just scroll on social media for an hour? Hear me out. So immediately I would just take a step back. I'm like, okay, so my brain wants to do that. So what I would do, something that I would do with my kiddos when I used to work with them, is first, let's do your homework. And then immediately after, not half an hour, like immediately right after you complete, like let's say that your goal is an hour of homework or an hour of reading, half an hour, whatever it is that your goal is, cleaning your room, whatever it is. Right after that, then you can reward yourself with that thing that your brain is telling you. Like I used to do this with food too. Like I used to be like, oh, I really want to have some snacks. And I would literally have snacks on my desk, and I would eat them only after I completed the task that I have in my hand. And that eventually you can start fading that out, and eventually the task itself becomes more rewarding and reinforcing. And then eventually, like you'll start finding joy in just reading your books. You start finding joy in reading your assignments, cleaning your room. So you know that's something that's definitely a technique that helped me a lot to shift to a more present life and just finding that joy in those little moments, because you know like we're here for for a short time, so might as well make sure that we're present, enjoying every second of it as much as we can.
Oh yeah. No, that's spot on. It's funny when you were saying that you made me think for a moment. Do you know the guy David Goggins?
I do, yes, I do.
Because like when you listen to his stuff, one of my clients put me onto him because he was using him for like motivation. Because his whole shtick is like, do the thing that you don't want to do, right? Like the thing that you really don't want to do, like go do that right now. So he was like, you don't want to run, get up and go run. You don't want to go to the gym, get up and go to the gym. And I remember the reason why I bring it up, and I say you made me think of this because you talk kind of about like fulfillment. And I know like there's days for sure where I'm like, man, I really don't want to get out of bed. Like I want to just lay here a little longer. But I also know like your point is, but then when I'm done and I come back home, I'm like, man, I feel good though. Like that feeling you get when you're done with the thing is great. It's just getting over that initial resistance of like, yeah, but I don't want to, like, I'm comfortable, like I'm snuggled up, whatever. I don't want to get up. It's like getting over that initial discomfort, but then you get like the reward and the payoff afterwards, if that makes sense.
I love that. I love that. And I feel like many people struggle with that initial like decision.
Yeah.
Like if you're in bed, I also used to struggle with this. And I don't know if you know Mel Robbins, but she told me something that really helped me in getting those things that I didn't want to do done first. And it's literally called 5-second rule. Like, don't give it too much thought. You already know your values. You already know what matters to you. So do a countdown from 5. And like straight up, like when I'm in bed and I have an alarm set, because past me, who was logical, knew that this is what I needed to do. What I do is I don't want to get up, but I do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get up and get going.
Yeah.
And that literally works for literally almost everything.
Yeah.
You could do that for your school, or you could do that for your exercise. If you're having a hard time getting started, count down. Literally count down, get up from the couch, go put some clothes on. And after you have the gym clothes on, what are you gonna do? Like you're
Like
gonna go sit
you
back
gotta go
down?
back and like, ah, I'm not gonna put it down. I changed my mind.
Yeah, exactly,
Self care.
exactly. Nah, so good. But yeah, that initial movement, those first 5 seconds are really what gets that momentum going for you to
Yeah,
get going. And then after that, after you get going, you're like, you know what? I got going, and after this, I get rewarded for whatever it is that you find rewarding for you.
absolutely.
Whether it is sometimes scrolling social media, eating a snack that you like, spending time with people that you enjoy, whatever it might be to you. But like those three steps are can really help you like just become a more productive person and find joy in the in being productive at the same time.
Oh yeah.
Um,
I think especially like you're saying with like the decision making, because sometimes I think it's very likely we get in our head too much. Like not
yes.
there's nothing wrong with analyzing. Like I'm a very analytical person. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But there is such a thing as like the analysis of paralysis, where you're just going too long. You're thinking about it so much that all the time goes by. I'll actually give you a practical example because one of my
Okay.
clients literally just mentioned this to me because they were talking about in terms of like overthinking. They were saying
Mm,
how I'll like say, for example, what time is it over here? It's 1:40 Eastern time. So let's say at 2 o'clock, I'm supposed to start working on this paper, but then it's 2:10. I forgot, I lost track of time, right? So then I kind of give myself some breathing room. Now it's like 2:30, and I'm like, oh well, now I got to wait till 3. And then I missed the 3 o'clock. It's 3:05, so now I got to wait until it's 4. And then the next thing I know, I'm like, it's the next day. I didn't get anything done. And so it's like they're like, how do I combat that? And I was like, well, number one, like you were just talking about, and just give yourself that moment. Like if you're gonna count down. Give yourself 5 seconds, a minute, whatever, and then start. I don't care if it's an odd time, if it's 2:17.
mm,
It doesn't matter. Just start. The important thing is just
start.
go get started, because then once you get to it and you feel that you've been able to be successful and productive, then you're gonna feel great. When my client was explaining that, it reminded me of like when I used to sometimes have difficulty writing papers. I'm always good at
Mm,
writing papers, but starting would sometimes be a task, right? Be a bit of a burden. And I remember
yep.
for me, the trick for me was I just had to start writing something. If I started writing a sentence or two and then I would just delete it, then I could be sitting there for like an hour or two and nothing got done. Or it feels like nothing got done because I have nothing on this paper. As opposed to
Mm,
if I just start typing stuff and I have to go back and start like, okay, I don't like the way that sounds. Let me go back and edit that there, and let me go there. Now I have some type of framework I can build from. And then that gets me motivated. And the next thing I know, I'm getting closer and closer, making progress to being done. So it's like you said, getting over that initial resistance. Why do I not want to do it? Well, it could be because I'm tired. It could be because it's new and it's a change and what have you. So what can I do to help me leverage beyond that, or push past that? Well, maybe I'm going to give myself some very quick reminder. If I had a set time and I missed it, it's okay. Let me just go now. Let me put the clothes on now. We'll go to the gym right now. I know it wasn't according to my schedule exactly, but whatever. The point is, let me give myself the time. If it's some other activity that I want to do or some person I want to connect with, even if things didn't go, as I would say, according to our tentative schedule. I consider
mm,
all schedules tentative, meaning stuff always can happen, right? We can have things at a certain time, but then it might not go exactly according to plan. Still, we want to be flexible, right? So if this is important to me, going back to the concept of today for self-love, if it's
mm.
important to me to do it, I need to be intentional about getting it done. Even if it didn't happen exactly when I said it was. I thought I was going to be done at 9 a.m. I did it at 9 p.m. Did you do it? Yes. Then I hope you feel more fulfilled. I hope you feel more at peace because you gave yourself that effort and that time. That, as again, as like a starting point, because we know change is hard. It takes time. It's incremental in progress. So we don't want to beat ourselves up if it didn't go exactly according to plan right off the bat. But you threw out a lot of good ideas about how we can get started.
Definitely, and like I'm glad that like that the temples that you brought up like kind of just keep bringing back the thought of um, progress over perfection. Like we live in this in society nowadays that perfection is always the goal.
Mhm.
Um, and realizing that first of all that's not realistic. First of all, that sets you up for failure every time.
For sure.
So like, just as everything else that you're doing in life, with self care and self love focus more on progress than you focus on perfection.
Yeah.
Because you do start setting out those, if you've never actually like added those like reminders to your calendar, or like actually scheduling that time self-care, you might miss the time for a little bit. You're like, oh, I missed it. My 5 minutes. Might as well just not do it. Like, what's the point? And
Mm-hmm.
that's because don't focus on perfection. Just focus on progress. And you know what? I'm gonna do like the rest of the time. I'm just gonna like do that for that little bit of time, and like really emphasizing that power of like, you know what? I did better than I did last week. I did better than I did last month. I did better than I did yesterday. It's necessary, and it's really so helpful, and it takes so much weight off your shoulders when you don't have to like expect that perfection. Like it's really just it just feels so much better, and it just feels so good in my opinion.
Yeah.
And yeah, like and something that I also like that I thought of when you were speaking about like writing a paper, is this idea of, again, it's a societal like conditioning that we've been conditioned to through like everything that we live
No
in
doubt. No
the
doubt.
world. It's like start before you're ready. Like we have like if start before you're ready. Of course, as long as it's not life or death. Like if you're a police officer, like you make sure that you're ready. But like if you're writing a paper, something that's not as consequential, something that's something put it down there just in case.
Yeah.
But something that's not as consequential, and most of our personal self-care routines are not as consequential as like the rest of the stuff. So just start before you're ready.
Mhm.
Like kind of just get started. If you never meditated before and you feel like I need to read every book on meditation, I need to watch no, just start. Like just
Yeah.
like you gain a lot more from practice than you gain from actual theory.
Yes.
So start practicing, because that's gonna teach you what you need to work on, and then like you can like use theory to help you like really dive in and like really make the tweaks that you need to make to like get better at that activity.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But for yeah, like that's something that it's I've noticed a lot of people struggle with, and I've struggled with myself, where we're so focused on I gotta be perfect. I need to master this. I need to have that, and then we end up just getting paralyzed, like you mentioned before, and not doing anything at all.
No.
Like the day goes by
Absolutely.
and you didn't get anything done.
Yeah, man. Come on,
So
man. We don't want that. And like what you said is very powerful there. It's much better for us to put in the effort and get started as opposed to like chasing perfection or chasing, again, even if it's just I had it scripted, like this is the way my day was supposed to look. And I'll emphasize this point because I think maybe this is important when we're talking about self-care. Because life, unfortunately, doesn't go according to your schedule.
life
Life
happens.
really doesn't care about what I got going on, what Carlos has got going on, what anybody that's viewing this right now has got going on. Some things are gonna happen at random, and we all have to be able to cope, to understand that, and be able to navigate. How does that work, right? So I can have the most perfectly tailored, manicured schedule that had every single item that I always wanted to do, and then some seemingly emergency can happen and just screw it all up, right? Do I want that to be like, oh, well, I got nothing done because this thing happened? No, I would make the point. I need to lean into it more now because now I have to deal with this emergency that I wasn't expecting. My self care routine better be pretty good so I can cope with that, because I wasn't expecting that to land in my lap. And so I think, again, making progress over perfection is like very, very key element. I hope that anything over self-care, that's something that you take away from the conversation is understanding I need to put in some effort rather than no effort. It's okay if things don't go exactly according to plan. The more important is, did I make the attempt? How do I feel now that I've done it? Because I'm always a big believer in the outcome. If you participate and you engage and you say, like I mentioned earlier about when I might not always be excited to roll out of the bed to go to the gym, but when I come back and I know how I feel, I enjoy that I went over the discomfort, right? So it's just remembering that part. Sometimes going through change and building new habits and behaviors, there is absolutely going to be discomfort. Like I hope there's nobody here watching this that has any assumption that it's just going to be smooth, because that's absolutely not true. You will feel challenged. And depending on how long it is that you've ever attempted this, or maybe you're trying for the first time, it can be anxiety provoking. That's totally normal. It's just about being able to make, again, any type of incremental step. I tried to meditate the first time. I was able to sit still for about 5 minutes. Okay.
Same.
Let's see. Can I go to 7 minutes? Can I go to 10 minutes? Can I go to 13 minutes? Like, it's okay if you don't get it all on the first try. Like you said, like, we want to encourage, I would almost say to a certain degree, I'm encouraging failure to
Yep.
continue to progress. So if you didn't hit whatever you thought you were supposed to hit, that's fine. Let me keep making attempts, modifying my approach slightly or tweaking it to get to where I want to go. And then I can raise the bar again. And then I can raise the bar again. Not to perfection, just to keep getting better at it, more fluid in it, you know?
100%. That honestly, I couldn't phrase it better myself. And I feel like I would really like to end the conversation there because I feel like we dropped a lot of really good gems that people can really start implementing now.
Yeah.
But just remember that at the end of the day, like self care is really about you, and like it's gonna take a lot of you asking yourself what matters to you, and being compassionate enough with yourself, especially because especially males of color, we don't necessarily do much a lot of self compassion, so it's important to remember that like it's important to
Nah,
remember like hey, be kind with yourself and like be okay with not being perfect. Be okay with starting where you are, and be okay with just messing up at first, and being open to like changes in life, and knowing that life will happen, and that's even that the way that I like to think about it personally is that like that's why we do the self-care routines. So for the times that you can't do the self-care routines, if you've been doing it for months, then you can handle it because you've been basically like just pounding all of that like self-care that you've been doing for a while. So if you don't have if you have to run out of the door in the morning for whatever reason, you know that you can handle it because you've already been putting in the work within yourself.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So definitely, and like watch this live as many times as you need to, and take notes, and because a lot of the stuff that we dropped on here, it's really practical and can really help you just like really be your best self in your everyday life, because that's the whole goal at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like we want to be like we want to show our best face. We want to be our best selves to our people and the people that we're serving. So take the time, love yourself, and be kind to yourself, be compassionate with the progress. Understand that like with any other habit, like it takes time to really make it automatic, or even to like for it to become a little bit easier, because it will become easier.
Yeah.
Like at first it might feel hard or challenging, and that's where growth happens. Growth happens in the uncomfortable. So
Yes.
remember that. If you feel uncomfortable, if you feel anxious, if you feel like weird or whatever, that's good. Like remember that that's a good thing. That's a good sign, because that's showing you like, oh, I'm making changes
Yeah.
that my brain is not going to be okay with, of course, because he wants to stay constant.
Yes.
But that means that you're growing. So that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
So
You need to bold and underline that one, man.
yeah, right.
Change is inherently uncomfortable. It's always going to be uncomfortable because it's different. And different isn't bad, it's just different. So I have to get used to what that looks like, what that feels like. And even when you're talking about, like driving the idea home today, what are we talking about? If I'm going to learn to prioritize myself, if I'm the type of person who really only cares about me, well, it's still important to practice good self-care, because maybe at some point you desire family and a relationship that will not only be about you. And to be a good partner, to be a good parent, you're going to need to practice those good healthy habits, so that way you're sustaining and fulfilling yourself. If you're a very selfless person, which is a lot of the people that I've been fortunate enough to deal with, it's really important for you to understand self-care, because the whole purpose of why we use the teacup analogies and why we talk about pouring into yourself first is because we want to practice things that are going to be sustainable for the long term, for a lifetime. We don't want to do things or encourage things that you can't do for an extended period of time, because it means that there's going to be a cost at some point that maybe you can't pay, you can't sustain, you can't maintain. So I would much rather say, with the things that we're discussing, that we're sharing, that we're promoting, is let me make sure that I give to myself first before I give to everybody else, because there's a greater chance that I can maintain that for the rest of my life, for myself, my friends, my family, my loved ones, my children, what have you. And it starts by making all these small changes, giving yourself the time, giving yourself the energy, the intentionality, doing things that you enjoy, starting with those small things to get some more fulfillment, right? Because we all deal with a lot of challenge and change in life. It can be a lot, to manage. And I just think it's better for us overall if we have these, what I would consider them all really healthy coping skills, doing these different interests or activities. It benefits us in the long term because we're going to be more well adjusted. We're going to be more stable, so we can ride the wave. Like when stuff comes up, we're like, okay, I can ride that wave and I maybe go down sometimes and
Yeah.
I'll come back to stable. I'll come back to, my midpoint. We want to encourage that. And, of course, like for anybody who's out there, who like if this is your first time watching or you've never like done anything mental health or personal development or self improvement, man, happy to have you. I'm sure Carlos is as well. I definitely have my platform where I talk a lot about this on the podcast or on my IG page, so check it out. But I just hope that you guys and women, whoever's watching this, if you see that you like need to address these areas, please do, and we'll keep trying to make more content like this. So I think we are both very encouraged and excited to try to reach more folks to talk about this type of information because we both recognize it's really important. So thank you for whoever watching.
Seriously, thank you for every single person that hopped on the live itself, and any person that watched the recording and watched all the way through, because that's also self care. Like you're really dedicating that time to really improve yourself and find ways where you can actually like fill your own cup. So thank you, and thank you for taking your time, because your time and your attention are the most valuable things we have. So I'm really grateful for that, and I'm really grateful for you to taking that time and like really just giving it to us. It's a wonderful thing. So I highly recommend going into Inspire Wellness Solutions and following my guy RJ and like really checking out his podcast. He has really amazing conversations on there where he dives in with other professionals about really important conversations that a lot of our communities are not having. So definitely go and check it out. Go follow him. I'm on here on Instagram as well, and I share literally every day inspiring material, things that are gonna liven up your feed per se, and like really just give you a little bit more of add value and give you a boost for the rest of your day, or
Yes.
kind of keep you going, get you going. So definitely go check that out. We have a lot more projects coming on in the future, so just stay tuned. And like I said, thank you
Yes.
for taking the time to fill your own cup, taking the time to care for yourself. And I thank you in advance for engaging in those self-care activities, and for engaging in those activities that are going to help you sustain that love that we all want to give to the people that we care about.
Yes.
So
Yes. Please do. Please do. Like, whatever we talk about, right? Like, please do the
even if
things
it's
that you
one,
know you want to sustain, that you want to do for a long period of time, and you will really benefit for it in the future. Just stick with it.
it compounds. It really does compound. Like many things compound, money, all this stuff, but self-care definitely compounds. The more that
Yes.
you do it, the better that you get at it, the more results. People are literally going to pull you aside. Like, yo, what are you doing? People are going to start noticing in your life. And then you can use that opportunity to teach them and pass that information along and help your community also improve and also start engaging in those self-care activities.
Yes.
Because that's what we're here for. We're really here to like support each other. We're better together at the end of the day. Like
Yes, sir,
it's just a fact.
man. Hey, preach.
Just a fact.
That's why we all got to rally together. We know it's important. The more we support and encourage each other, the better off we're all going to be, man, moving forward. So let's keep up the good work.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for the first of your day. Thank you, Arjun, for taking your time. I know that you're a really busy individual. Thank you for taking the time to like really hop on here and really pour into our community and really just help help make these conversations a little bit less taboo, make these conversations, more common, because they are common and they're normal. This is what humans are. We have emotions. We need to care for ourselves. This is okay, and a lot of especially men of color, we don't really understand that yet in the majority. So we really want to make that switch, and I really want to take the time to thank you for taking the time to really helping me, basically live my mission, which is, to really pour into a community and like add value to them every single day.
Yes,
So
man, of course. No, I appreciate you for having me here, man. We will continue to do this as much as we can because I think it's, it takes a village. We're trying to tackle really big issues. It's not something that we can do as individuals. And I think when you have like-minded people who really want to, support others, that it's great to collaborate. So I'll be here as much as I can to support. But thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Hopefully we can run it back soon. You already know. Have a wonderful rest of your day, guys. It's all love. Take care, and I'll see you next time.
Peace.
Peace.